Good day to you, Guyana, and welcome to another edition of Facing the Nation. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you very much for joining us and, of course, inviting us into your homes. I trust that for those of you who are actually at home and those of you who are in your offices and watching, and also to those of you in the social media land, I know some of you view Facing the Nation via the CNS Channel 6's live Facebook feed. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for always joining and supporting us. And even for those of you who don't support us, of course, the talk about politics and governance and elections is heavy in the air. And when that happens, unfortunately, in our country, there is so much division, even more division than usual. I always say somebody has to be on one political side and somebody has to be on the other political side. But we know when it gets to this time that the tension is very, very thick. The tension gets very thick. So even those of us who are looking at us with who are viewing the program with some sort of anger and animosity, we'll continue to pray for you. But nevertheless, thank you very much for always tuning in. Well, today I have another feature-like program for you today. No guest last week. Again, thank you very much as always to those of you who messaged us. Even the negative comments that we have to continuously remove from our YouTube site. Thank you very much for those also. It means that you're paying attention and we're hitting some of the sensitive nerves. So for those of you who tuned into last week's program with the Honorable David Patterson, he talked a lot about public infrastructure and so on. And of course, he came on this program on the heels of that accident that we had. When I say accident, meaning in the river, that we had that displaced commuters for about practically 48 hours. So we thank you very much for all those comments and sentiments. But we move on this week, a feature-like program this week. I am going to be focusing on earlier in the week, that would have been Wednesday, the Gaming Authority. They had their, I think it's the second stakeholders forum for this year, and the feature address, the keynote address, was done by the Director General of the Ministry of the Presidency, the Honorable Joseph Harman. He addressed that. We'll try to see if we can bring that to you a little later on in the program. First and foremost, however, we're going to focus on the People's National Congress reform, some of the sentiments coming from the party. The party continues to hold its weekly press briefing, and I know the press briefing today actually focused on the fact that the current administration is governing Guyana based on the rule of law, regardless of what is being said and what is being peddled out there for some people who want things their way and only their way. Because again, and I did tell you last week, the saddest thing about that is that people who want things their way, a specific gentleman, if we want to get direct, needs to have power to feel some sort of relevance and some sort of usefulness within himself. And I really think that is sad. So people who want things their way are going to try to tell you that the government is not governing the way that they should be governing in light of everything that would have happened from last December. That would have been December 2018 to now. But lots happening. On that note, though, I want to enlighten you and to remind you, some of you may see it in the major newscast a little later on in the day, and some of you already on social media, that there's a team from the coalition, from the APNU+AFC coalition government, met with GCOM this morning. I'm doing this with a pinch of salt and very carefully because I only got the notification on my phone just a minute or two before this program began. So I'm taking a chance by quoting from one of the online news sites. It's usually very credible, but I'm going to take a chance and do that. It basically said that the members, this team of the coalition government met with GCOM, and I'm going to quote, the person who headed the team would have been Madam Valda Lawrence. She is not only the Minister of Public Health, but she is also the chairperson of the People's National Congress Reform. And according to this, and again, I'm doing this with a pinch of salt, Lawrence said the commission assured her delegation that no statutory deadline would be shortened and that data gathered from the July-August house-to-house registration process would be used. Lawrence, who is chairman of the People's National Congress Reform, said the commission indicated that they would not shorten, and again, this is quoting, they would not be shortening any process as laid out in the statute. They are looking at the administrative aspect to see how they can work with that in terms of the deadlines and timelines. Of course, that is those quotes came from an online news site, which is usually credible, Well, sometimes more times than not. They're credible, and the sentiments are based on the fact that members of the government earlier today met with GCOM. So hopefully you'll get the breakdown of that a little later on in the day. As again I said, that notification came to my phone about a minute or two before we went on air, but I just wanted to try to keep you up to date as best as possible. Now on to one of the main things on our program today. I want to read you as much of it as I can. The statement from the People's National Congress Reform today. Despite the naysayers, the PNC wants you to know that, of course, and I like to remind people that the PNC is the largest political party in the APNU+AFC coalition government, and they want you to know that this government has governed based on the rule of law. The People's National Congress Reform wishes to underscore the significant strides made in improving the judicial system in Guyana and to congratulate President David Granger and the Partnership for National Unity Alliance for Change coalition government. Clearly, the independence of the judiciary has been restored. So basically, today's press conference and the statement is focusing on the fact that under this administration, this current administration that took office in 2015, the judiciary has basically been restored and has been able to function independently. Constitutional matters are being dealt with expeditiously in keeping with the convention. No longer do such matters stall in the courts as was in the case, and this is where it gets interesting, as was in the case under the People's Progressive Party Civic PPPC. The decisions of our courts are being honored. Gone are the days when the court ruled in favor of a citizen and the state refused to honor the court's decision, as was the practice under the lawless previous regime. Guyanese are assured that this coalition government respects the ruling of our courts and will ensure justice is done. The PNCR wishes to applaud President Granger and the APNU+AFC for upholding the Constitution and governing Guyana based on the rule of law. The PNCR supports the APNU+AFC government's decision to appoint more judges to ensure that the judicial system is equipped to deliver justice. In this regard, it should be noted that the appointment of additional judges and other measures taken by the government, especially the Civil Procedures Rules 2016, have resulted in a reduction of the backlog of cases. This, coupled with the establishment of many courts in hinterland and other rural communities, guarantees that our people can access the judicial system and do so at a lower cost. And this has always been an issue for His Excellency President David Granger, the fact that because of the way our physical landscape, physical structure, whatever you want to call it, is set out, sometimes it seems as though the hinterland is just, a whole country apart from the coast. So when we're focusing on judiciary, it helps that we have this information. It's not just information. These are the facts. These decisions by the APNU+AFC government are a clear manifestation that it cares for the people of Guyana, meaning all people of Guyana, and that it is bent on delivering both access to the justice system and justice. The PNCR believes that lawyers who are performing at a high level should also be rewarded. It is apposite, therefore, to commend President David Granger and the APNU+AFC for rewarding those who deserve to be appointed senior counsel, ending years of PPP disregard for the services of our lawyers who distinguished themselves. Lawyers can now look forward to obtaining their due. This should restore hope in all lawyers and those students pursuing legal studies. That too is, very, very important to recognize people, for their efforts. The PNC also wishes to thank the government for restoring scholarships to students who want to study law. This decision brings to an end the discrimination against poor, bright young people who, because of their economic circumstances, were deprived of their right to realize their academic and professional goal. The PPPC's policy to deprive the children of the poor from becoming lawyers has been rightly brought to an end. And, we're all very, very happy about that. Even those who support the PPP, it's good. It's good to be honest at times, at least most of the times. It is part of the PNCR's core ideology that all our people, especially the poor, must have access to state resources to realize their legitimate ambitions. All right-thinking Guyanese will recognize that the PPP was not a party with the interest of the poor at heart and rejected them at the May 2015 elections because they were not fit and proper to manage our affairs then, and they're still not fit and proper now to manage the finances that will accrue from our oil and gas industry. Clearly, the APNU+AFC interest is in developing our human resources, and the coalition is best placed to serve the interests of all people of Guyana. While the APNU+AFC government has restored law and order and the independence of the judiciary, the PNCR condemns the PPP abuse of this independence. It is unacceptable for the PPP to be abusing the judicial system in its attempt to obtain political power. It is a clear abuse of the judicial system to be returning to court for a decision on matters that the highest court, that is the Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ, has already ruled on. While the PNCR knows the megalomaniac behind the abuse of the judicial system, we wish to point out that his interest is not in serving the Guyanese people and urge him to manifest some modicum of decency and end the abuse of the judicial system. The use of the judicial system to get power is not new and it wouldn't succeed. The people of Guyana are aware that under the PPP, the executive abused its power. And this is just a reminder of all these things that happened. Some of these things that are coming out of the PNCR's press conference today are nothing new. But, we need to keep reminding our people because, unfortunately, at times we quickly forget. We quickly forget the truth, and then when we get upset if the current administration does something that we're not necessarily in favor of, in agreement of, we throw every good thing that they've done out the window, and, and we try to forget where we came from and the kind of lives that we led under the previous administration. So these things coming out of the PNCR's press conference today, they're not new, but they're just reminders, and our people need to be reminded every now and again. The then head of state assented to a bill, then meaning the previous administration, assented to a bill to ensure that a person can only serve 2 terms as president. He then orchestrated for someone who worked with him to challenge it in court. It succeeded in Guyana while the judiciary operated based on fear. It was overturned at the CCJ. Not satisfied, the PPP continues its quest for power at all costs. The people of Guyana are well aware of the control that the PPP exercised over the judiciary while they were in power. The Guyanese people cherish the independence that the judiciary is now enjoying and will never forget the PPP's reign of fear, and will vote to return President David Granger and the APNU+AFC to government. I thought it necessary to read that for you today. That came out of the PNC's press conference earlier today at 11. Often we can't get the video footage to you immediately because of some other constraints, so I decided to bring the essence of what was said at the press conference, at least the main statement for you that would have been read by the press conference. Other matters would come out, obviously, in the question and answer segment. Of course, I told you I have 2 other matters to do because we're going to do a feature-like program today, and we're going to bring you some sentiments and so on. One of the sentiments, and this is getting really old very quickly, but again, we have to keep banging at the same things because the amount of lies that are coming from the other side and agents of the other side, they say that I don't necessarily agree with it, but some people do, and this is what is said. If you tell a lie, you keep telling a lie constantly, and you tell it long enough, it becomes the truth because you yourself begin to believe your own lies, and then people out there, are feeding off of it. So I am frankly at the point where I am tired of the fact that the government has to keep defending this issue, certain issues and certain things being said. Now it's a new one. Minister Felix was forced yesterday or the day before. Yes, the days are going so quickly that I think I'm losing the time. He was forced to, on Wednesday, to rebuff some statements made during one of the local newscasts. And according to what is said here, it is the MTV News Update story on Africans. And the minister has demanded an apology. I am not sure that he has gotten that apology as yet. I trust that if he hasn't gotten the apology, he would get it, because and that is why when I was reading earlier for you the fact that members of the government met with, I know they did meet with GCOM earlier today, but in terms of the quote and what was said and what came out of it, I was specific to point out that I'm doing it with a pinch of salt, because here now we're going to go to an issue where a minister has to demand an apology from what is supposed to be a mainstream evening newscast, not the evening news, but an evening newscast. According to it here, it's the MTV News Update, where he has to demand an apology because they're either purposely misleading the public, which is basically pushing propaganda. Well, flat out, I don't necessarily like the word propaganda. I just like to call it what it is, that everybody understands: lies. So here now he has to demand an apology from them because they either didn't fact check, but I am more inclined to believe that it's just plain lies. They just want to lie to create a situation. And again, there's always the very vulnerable sections of the population that unfortunately they're a bit gullible, so they believe everything that you hand to them. And these are the sections, or this is the sections of our population, of our society, that news houses like these take advantage of. And then a little later on in the day, somebody's either going to message me or call me to say, oh Malika, you can't be attacking the mainstream media. And I'm not attacking the mainstream media. You cannot attack the government or a government minister or just put bland lies out there, just flat out lies out there, and then expect that, okay, everybody else must just sit back and take it lying down. I know this would have been in some of the media houses, some of the newscasts on Wednesday evening and so on. But again, if we don't respond to the lies the same way that the lies come at us, they eventually, unfortunately, become the truth. So what I'm going to do now is have our operator go to that press conference that would have been held by Minister Winston Felix on Wednesday, that's earlier this week, where he had to basically try to debunk some of the lies that would have been spread based on this story by MTV News Update. And of course, he's also demanding an apology. And some other things came out of that press conference too. So here you go, have a listen. Of course, this is Facing the Nation. Stay with us.
Broadcast attributed to MTV News Update on the evening of Saturday, August 31, 2019, and which appeared on YouTube, captioned, "The PNC plans got busted." In the news broadcast, the news anchor asserted that a number of illegal foreigners from countries in Africa were promised their citizenship in exchange for votes has been exposed. The news anchor stated that the foreigners were invited to a meeting on Wednesday, 28th of August, 2019, where they were promised the following: to be assisted with citizenship status, that the foreigners confirmed that they received citizenship. The foreigners were advised that they should register and vote APNU+AFC, that the foreign students were promised to have their tuition fees paid once they voted for APNU+AFC. And lastly, a man involved in alleged fake marriage was promised to have an investigation into his matter discontinued by the police. I wish to state that the statements emanating from MTV News Update are completely false and libelous and are designed to tarnish the good image and reputation of the APNU+AFC government. As Minister of Citizenship, I responded to a request by Mr. Rettimeyer, who represented the case that there are some African nationals in Guyana who had expressed concerns on the services provided by the Department of Citizenship and wanted redress. In response, a meeting was arranged to listen to their concerns for remedy and redress. This meeting was held at 8 p.m. on Wednesday, August 28, 2019 at Crichton Labour College. The matters can be classified as follows. the lengthy period to finalize their applications for citizenship, long delays to resolve their applications for citizenship by marriage. One man reported that his marriage to a Guyanese, he is married to a Guyanese and his application was with the police. A foreign student inquired about her extension of stay in Guyana since she had some challenges with regard to her tuition fees, and a man represented other persons who were seeking employment visas. The student was told that this was a separate issue which cannot be dealt with, and she was informed openly. While consideration of the other matters was deferred. Thus, at 14:30 hours on Thursday, the 29th of August 2019, the meeting was resumed at the Department of Citizenship in this very room. And by that time, the staff was in possession of all the relevant files in this matter. The responses to the queries raised the previous night were given openly, and these can be put in the following categories. 4 persons with issues in relation to marriages were deferred for subsequent consideration. Another 4 were at the Immigration Office, Ivleri. About 3 persons had consideration into their applications for citizenship by marriage and residency already completed, and the applications for employment visas were not dealt with because the persons involved did not have the status deserving consideration. The scandalous information by MTV News Updates is devoid of facts and should be withdrawn with an apology. The culture of mendacity displayed by the newscast in an attempt to sully the image of government ministers must be exposed for what it is. I consider this untruthful news broadcast to be an attack on my character and libelous. The APNU+AFC government stands firm on its decision to have a credible list as the basis on which general and regional elections in Guyana will be conducted. I would not get involved in any disdainful act, as suggested by MTV News Update, to secure votes for the APNU+AFC coalition in exchange for citizenship for any foreign national residing in this country. I have made a report to the relevant authorities, and my lawyers will take whatever action is appropriate in this matter. Thank you very much. Pardon me? No, it would not. When, in my experience, when a complaint as wide as those were are made against the members of staff, it's better to hold it somewhere else first. Because people coming here might be afraid. They have to pass and come upstairs. They may not want to do that. And so, the information you would get to correct deficiencies in the department might be withheld. After the matters were trashed out, and I was sure what I'm dealing with. At that stage, I was not sure what I'm dealing with. I didn't ask him to get involved. He called me. He called me and told me that there are these African people in the country who have issues with the staff downstairs in my department. I didn't tell him to go ahead. I agreed to meet with them.
Just to clarify, you said that I can talk to you personally.
Yes. Mr. Rettimeyer is a man, by the way, I know since 1982. We work together. We have had exchanges all these years. And I don't know him as a person who I should touch with a 10-foot pole. A 10-foot pole.
So this was a question because of the press conference this morning, he indicated that an invitation was sent to you by an organization and he was not personally engaged with you. So
Well, I don't know. Listen, I don't know what he said at another meeting.
that's fine.
I know that I was contacted by him and I agreed to meet with the people. Well, the first count I made was 19. Others trickled in later on. That's my first count.
Mr. Felix, is there a reason, or could you confirm whether the persons were asked to turn their phones off? And if that was the case, say why?
They were asked to, not by me. I didn't ask them. You have a question?
Concerning the immigration issue.
Yeah.
Concerning the immigration issue, do you believe that a part of it has to do with the language barrier?
Pardon me?
A part of a language barrier?
No, the issues which were represented to me concerned interpersonal relationships and this is dissatisfaction with how they were spoken to in their quest for answers to what they perceive to be delays in dealing with their matters. You know, nobody is saying except for one person which you scarcely represent.
I've worked with the union, so I'll do that work. We have to not just drop that. I was wondering if you have statistics available.
If I have,
If you have stats available that you could say within the last year perhaps, how many foreign nationals were granted citizenship?
well, that is not difficult, you know. If I just, it's just that I didn't walk with it, but if I just step over there,
Yes.
right? You will, look, see if you could pick it up on my desk, a single file. I could have anticipated that question coming. I could have anticipated it.
Sir,
In the meantime, any other question?
Minister Felix, back in 2016, I was rein from the evening. Back in 2016, about 300,000 high-tech birth certificates were ordered. Can you say how many of those are?
I am not sure about your figure. What I do know and can tell you is that when we took office, as a matter of fact, I had another life before this, and I dealt with forged birth certificates. Right now, there are about 3 matters where forged birth certificates of persons in the U.S. have turned up, long before all this started. So when we came into office, one of the first things we set out doing was creating a birth certificate that is reasonably secure. And let me say this, since those birth certificates are in use, we haven't had one case of fraud. Not one, since we introduced those birth certificates.
Okay, well, how many were ordered?
You're asking me a question, to answer a question which I can answer, but I don't want to do so because I don't want to give the wrong figure. Right? But we ordered, and we ordered sufficient for our needs for the year until we placed another order.
Do you have figures of how many were
Well, I am here, but certificates are issued at the post office. And let me tell you this. You cannot match the order, the supplies of birth certificates with what you presume to be the activity level. Because some people come for one birth certificate and they want 3 copies of that birth certificate, 4 copies for different reasons, right? So you can, and when there is at this time here for school, you have that kind of orders. So you cannot assume that this number is too much, because if you do not order adequate numbers, you will run out of the documents, and you create a problem in the office. So you have to anticipate the need and to be prepared to respond. Like now, everybody now trying to get a birth certificate. If you don't have the resources available, you run out. And that would not be good for your planning and anticipation. No. Yeah, let me hear you. These are old matters, which cannot be dealt with because the subjects are not here. Those are on the investigation, man. Yeah. Madam, I am not in the investigation. So I cannot answer that. Right? As to who has gone where to do what, I can't tell you that right now. But it has been sent for the investigators to proceed. And those who have charge of the investigations will determine who goes when and where.
Minister, you indicated that there were some maybe complaints or hints at that about staff's behavior and maybe the attitude towards people that were coming in. Have you handed over any matters to the police with regards to any complaints that were raised?
Well, those matters are not, those are organizational issues which the organization has to address. They are not matters which would attract or which did have any remote or close relationship with criminality. So there's no need to refer it to the police.
More specifically, Minister, is there any indications of any wrongdoings of the staff involved in any staffers?
No, but it's interpersonal behavior. I don't like how you talk to me, you know. I don't like how you look at me, and you know.
You said that you mentioned your attorneys have been instructed that they commence legal action or that they look at prosecution.
Well, my lawyers are looking at the matter and will determine what to do. I've already said that whatever course of action they see fit, they're free to go ahead.
But are you interested? No, they have to receive instructions from
I am interested.
So
You can't have people openly lying on you and you feel comfortable about it. Listen, I just wanted to be decent and I did not say these are blatant lies. Nothing as stated in that news broadcast has any truth in it. Nothing in it. The only truth in it is that the meeting was held. That's all. That's the only truth. The meeting was held and I'm not going to run from the meeting.
Pardon me, one more question.
Yes, you are.
Yvonne from Channel 9. My name is Rick.
Thank you very much.
All right. My last question. Were you approached by the people who did the report, or was anybody else of the member that was in that meeting approached to confirm these details, or did they just...
If I was approached, your question seems to want me to say whether I was approached by...
To confirm, like, did anybody approach you to confirm what they were representing, or were they just going off the basis?
No, if anybody approached me to
by the news publication,
Uh-huh.
supposed to confirm, to say this, to ask questions and anything that you
Well, one strange name called me yesterday from, I think it was, and I'm saying this respectfully, I don't know the gentleman. He called me and I told him I would have this press conference today.
That was my strange name, but
Right.
what she is asking about, did members of MTV call you on the line
Never,
speaking
never,
on the
never,
line?
never, 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 never. As a matter of fact, I was alerted to the broadcast by the phone. Somebody sent the YouTube broadcast to me, and that is how I got to know about it. So I was wondering whether that was the meeting I held. Yes, yes, I won't deny you. I have what happened in 2015, right? Nationals from 35 countries, 141 persons were granted citizenship. That is in 2015. Nationals from 35 countries. Then in 2016, we had nationals from 34 countries, 192 persons were granted citizenship. And I am looking for your favorite persons. Haitians, 1 in 2016. In 2015, 1 again. In 2017, 40 nationals from foreign countries. 40 countries with 230 nationals being granted citizenship in Guyana. Among them, 7 Haitians. 2018, 42 from 42 countries. We had 252 nationals, 3 Haitians. That's 28. For 2019 up to July, 30 countries with 30 nationals, 108 of them, 30 nationalities, 108 persons were granted citizenship up to July. 2 were Haitians.
Can I take you out of the realm of the discussion here and what is regards to open country? I think there were some statements that came from the ministry. So what says that so many thousands, I think it was 9,000 excess came into the country. Who gets those figures when it comes, when the people enter the country?
Sir, I don't understand your question.
You don't understand
You're talking about 9,000 what?
9,000 for Haitians, I think, would have entered for the year. I think those were the figures.
I don't have the figure given to me, but I think it was 8,000 which we released.
Right.
And then they had other people releasing figures different from what we have.
All right, my question to you, who gets those figures when it comes to the airport? Does your ministry require those figures, or does those figures are available?
Well, at times we do, when we need to tabulate the figures, we do get the information. The information is kept by the immigration department.
My question to you as a government policy maker maybe, when people come into this country and they're not leaving, or if is it picked up anywhere along the line that they're not leaving? But is it
Now,
system
listen,
that's designed like that?
there are different categories of persons who come into the country. Once they come, if they are not Guyanese, they come with a visa, or they get a visa on arrival. That visa is not unlimited. If you come on a visitor's visa, you get a period of stay. At the end of it, you can apply for an extension of that stay. So that if you are to mark that person based on the stay they were given at the airport, it would not be safe for you to conclude that the person is due to leave because they may have extended it. Okay? But there is a mechanism to determine
That was what I said.
those persons who have not left. There is a mechanism.
Why am I still, because we have into oil and gas, and there's going to be a whole bunch of foreigners that will come into it. Do we need a policy change, or are we going to be moving in that direction to have something different from what we do now?
Sir, in terms of oil and gas, the foreigners are coming right now. Right now, we receive over 100 applications. I'm being very conservative here for a day downstairs. Right? The process visas for persons who are coming to work oil and gas outside in the Atlantic. Some of them, they just come, arrive in the hotel, get to Ogle, helicopter trip to the drill ships out there. And I gather that the numbers can pick up when other oil blocks come into operation, right? But we are dealing with the current applications for work permits in some degree of efficiency which does not disrupt the work on the drill ships out there. And we have been doing so over a year now.
What I'm trying to get from you is there any weaknesses in the system that you see now that needs to be corrected, and what are those? Give this a
Well, there are always weaknesses in the system, and in this case, we are keeping an eye on those systems, on those areas of possible weaknesses. We work closely with the oil companies, sometimes directly, sometimes through their contractors to avoid in the first instance delays, so that if the oil companies feel that there is a backlog in their applications, they would inform us. We would meet, discuss, and sort out the issues. But there are no areas of weaknesses which are insurmountable. We have been addressing them as they come around.
Mr. Felix, I don't have the exact date, but it might have been 2 years ago that you met with the parliamentary committee. I don't remember if it was one on social services. I don't remember.
The Parliamentary Subcommittee on Foreign Relations.
Right. And you had said then that there was difficulty in monitoring when the Haitians reached there. You have the records of them coming in, but you weren't sure. They're going out from. No, you don't have the record of them leaving. Could you say if you've been able to address that?
At that time, I was referring to both the quarantine post.
All right. We started to get some difficulties there, but what I realized is that you got the gist of it, and I didn't want to prolong it any further. But the main issue there, and I allowed it to run because I didn't want people to believe that, we were in some whatever way sheltering the minister from, and we didn't want you to hear. And I know some of you had difficulties, but especially those of you in social media land, because I'm sitting here in the studio, and I would understand that some of you would have had difficulties with hearing the questions that the members of the media would have been posing to the minister, but I allowed it to play out a bit because I didn't want people to think, especially some of you in the diaspora, those of you who are clearly supporters of the other side, who are bent on coming on our YouTube channels every single week and coming with your nasty and vicious and vile comments. And I like to tell you, keep them coming. I have enough time every day to delete the comments and block some of you. But I didn't want some of you to think that we were sheltering the minister and the minister can't respond to the questions. As you can see, Minister Felix is very capable of answering some of the tough questions that would come. And people are they're bent on keep beating this, I want to call it a dead horse by now. The issue with the Haitians and coming up with things. They say what a man does, so he thinks. So you know whatever position you were in, you were going to use that to your advantage and do the sinister thing that you're accusing the APNU+AFC administration of. And people keep coming for the government and for the minister to say, well, look, the Haitians are being used, and now it's Africans, and then MTV News with this long malicious update. And while the recording, while it was on air, I had an opportunity. I spoke with the minister, Minister Felix himself, just to ensure that I am not continuing an issue that would have been resolved, and it hasn't been resolved because MTV News Update refuses to apologize. Or let me give them the benefit of the doubt. They have not apologized. You heard from the minister. This report was since the what was it, the 29th or the 30th of August. The minister held this press conference on the 11th of September, and still to date, no apology from News Update. So that is why earlier I said to you, I prefer to just say lies, because you know that you're a liar. Lying. It is not twisting the truth. It is not bending. It is not fudging the truth. It is plain out, simple lying. It is not misinformation. You're just liars. And again, you've gotten an opportunity. But you see, me, I deal with things differently. But he's the honorable minister. He has to know how he is going to deal with it. You're still not going to apologize. I noticed the minister in his sentiment said, of course, the words came from the news anchor. But I'm going to go a little further. I'm not going to blame the news anchor, because oftentimes news anchors, they're not that they're not competent, they're very well incompetent, but they're given a script, especially if you're only a news anchor, not an editor or a senior reporter. You're given a script and you have to read what's on there. And I am not going to call his name on this program right now because I refuse to give him relevance, because he thinks he's somehow relevant. But I know the editor-in-chief for News Update, MTV News Update, and he just would not turn from his wicked ways. But we're still going to sit here and hope that even if the apology doesn't come, I know the minister definitely wants an apology, but even if the apology doesn't come, that this particular editor-in-chief, news editor, whatever it is that he calls himself these days, will get himself together and try to report the news and put the news out there from whatever moral compass, if there's still any left in any of his bones, because I think he has gotten sidetracked too, that somehow he thinks that, if this gentleman that continues to come for the government, who so desperately wants power, I think he has convinced himself that he will get some amount of power too if that gentleman gets, even though we know it wouldn't be the gentleman getting back into office, but we all know what is happening there, that the presidential candidate is just the front. So I think this particular news editor-in-chief, again, whatever it is that he calls himself these days, he thinks that by putting lies out there, he can somehow benefit and somehow gain. I beg to differ, but I'm going to stop there for now on him, because I realize, because I know this individual, I'm getting a bit emotional, and because I know that, he can search high and low, he still doesn't have a moral compass in his body. So I'm going to leave that there for now. We have a few more minutes left on the program. I'm not sure that we're going to get to bring it to you in its entirety, but because we have the time, as I told you earlier, the Gaming Authority of Guyana held its second stakeholders forum for the year earlier in this week. Actually, that was also held on Wednesday morning, and the feature address was given by the Director General of the Ministry of the Presidency, the Honorable Joseph Harman. Many people will not agree with this. I'm still on the fence a bit about it, but it's in the news, and it's a way of encouraging for the right thing to happen in our society. Most people are not for gambling, but it is here. It is what it is here, and it is very legal. And I know the Director General, basically called on the Gaming Authority to promote responsible gambling. Again, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but like I said, it's here. So we're going to see how much of it we can get in the time that we have left. So I'll ask my operators to pull up that feature addressed there by Joseph Harmon to the Guyana Gaming Authority. This is Facing the Nation.
Assad, Chief Medical Officer, Regional Health Officers and their representatives, representatives of the Ministry of Education, gaming stakeholders, colleague of the Gaming Authority, media representatives, welcome. Welcome to Gaming Authority's second Stakeholders Forum of 2019, being held under the theme Responsible Gaming in Guyana. The aim of this forum is to inform and sensitize public health and the aim of this forum is to inform and sensitize public health and education officials and key gaming stakeholders on responsible gaming practice in Guyana.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Lloyd, for your warm words of introduction. Dr. Shamdeo Prasad, Chief Medical Officer of the Ministry of Public Health, and officers of the Ministry of Public Health. Mr. Roysdale Ford, Chairman of the Gaming Authority, and other members of the board of the Gaming Authority. Mr. Lloyd Moore, Chief Executive Officer of the board, regional health officers from across Guyana, Mr. Richard Henry, the responsible gaming specialist from Kingston, Jamaica, stakeholders and other invited guests. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, good morning. I would like to first of all thank the Gaming Authority for this invitation to address your stakeholders forum this morning. The theme of this forum, Responsible Gaming in Guyana, brings me some level of assurance that the Gaming Authority is taking a holistic and an all-encompassing approach to its role as the regulatory authority for casinos, lotteries, and betting shops in Guyana. In addition to regulating gaming entities for the Anti-Money Laundering and Countering the Financing of Terrorism Act, number 2009, the Gaming Authority has a responsibility to ensure that the public and operators of gaming establishments are aware of not only the positive but also the negative impacts that gaming can have on an individual and in our society in general. This is necessary so as to assist owners in appreciating the need for systems and policies that will support responsible gaming and gambling. In order to ensure responsible gambling in Guyana, all stakeholders within the gaming industry will have to accept their respective roles in upholding the agreed upon principles and standards. This is, of course, not just only a job for the Gaming Authority alone, but must be a collaborative effort between the Gaming Authority, government, communities, and citizens. When we first came into office in 2015, I had ministerial responsibility for this entity. I've seen it grown from a 3-man operation, well actually 2 ladies, 2 men and a woman, from a 3-person operation to what it has become today. A gaming authority staffed, I wouldn't say fully staffed, but staffed and well equipped to carry out its functions. I'm aware that much more has to be done, but I'm confident that we have the right personnel in place to do that job. Legislation to strengthen the authority is with the government, and passage in the National Assembly should take place once that institution is operable. This is very important at this phase of our development. With our economy moving at the pace at which it is moving, I can only anticipate that there's going to be a tremendous pressure on the authority for licenses to open gaming establishments. What I've also seen is that there's a proliferation of these betting shops all across Guyana. And I trust that the Gaming Authority takes this responsibility of ensuring that these entities are properly regulated and that they operate within the confines of the laws of Guyana. Because you cannot escape notice that some of these operations are in some of the specially challenged communities in our country. And therefore the urge to bet, place monies on betting other than the other issues which should affect us as a citizen and as a family they will have some negative impacts on it. So I trust that the Gaming Authority pays very careful attention to this development that is taking place. The Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder has established criteria for diagnosing persons with gambling disorders, as well as treatments that range from psychotherapeutic interventions to pharmacological treatment. The presence of the medical community here today is therefore crucial as we strive to promote awareness and institute measures that will create a gambling landscape which supports the mental health of our people. These provisions exist all in our countries with advanced gaming industries, where there are the entrenchment of responsible gaming programs and policies which must be implemented by gaming operators, since they are incorporated by the authorities into the criteria for licensing. And this is the point I just want to make, that these responsible gaming arrangements must find themselves into our criteria for licensing these entities. Our government recognizes
All right, we're going to have to leave that right there because we're out of time. But I really wanted to push in to give you an idea in terms of some of what the Director General said. And I'm happy that so many persons were present, and they're focusing, as you heard it there, you know, it's not only about gambling. I did say I'm on the fence about gambling, but there's nothing that I can do. It is already here. But it is good to know that the background, behind the scenes, they're putting measures in place to and you heard the Director General there just talk about things that can come out of gambling. Actually, some people become addicts to disorders. So, and he did mention the Chief Medical Officer who was also there. So it shows that there's much collaborative effort when it comes to Guyana's gaming sector. I trust that it continue on that road because, as I said, many Guyanese are still and will forever be on the fence about whether the society needs it or not. But we have to move beyond ourselves and understand that sometimes there are things that are going to happen that we don't necessarily like. There are things that are going to happen that we like once it is not taking our human resources or sacrificing our human resources, because at the end of the day, a nation's people are more important, because if we don't have our people alive and well and healthy, walking around and, living lives the way that they should, our country cannot develop. So apart from our country's, any nation's natural resources, the second best thing is our human resources, or I should say our human resources. And on that note, I have to wrap up today's Facing the Nation for you. With you, sorry. I trust that you, especially to our Indigenous brothers and sisters, yes, I had a pause there for a second. We're still in the month of Indigenous people's Heritage, Amerindian Heritage Month. There are so many different names for it now. As we always try to be politically correct. Also in the month of education, still trying to get representatives from both agencies, both sectors, to come and talk with us. But whether they come or not, we're still going to be here on Facing the Nation with you. As always, thank you so very much for tuning in, especially those of you who tuned in live on social media, on Facebook. Those of you who are now joining live at home, and you missed it, you can go to my YouTube channel and Facebook pages a little later on in the day, and you will catch today's program in its entirety. I am Malika Ramsey. As always, be good Guyanese citizens. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Thanks for watching, and this has been Facing the Nation.